Okay, good morning, FUMC family and friends. We've got a real treat for you here this morning with a God story. I just want to introduce a friend of mine to you. Some of you know him through soccer. Some of you have been in a life group with him. Some of your kids go to school with his kids, and some of you don't know him at all, but you've been praying for him. And so I want to introduce Gerry Baus. He's been in the hospital for the past few weeks with COVID, and you've done an awesome job as a church just praying for him and his family, and I want to thank you for that. So I just want to introduce Gerry. Why don't you say hi and just tell us a little bit about your experience.
So hi, everybody. Like Shawn said, for those that don't know me, I'm familiar with your congregation, and after coming out of the ventilator and off the ventilator and starting to get text messages, I started to realize all the prayers, especially from your congregation in particular, that I received. So I wanted to start by first thanking everybody in your congregation for all the time, and not just praying for me, but praying for my wife and my family, and spending time with her when she really needed it. So I wanted to get that out of the way first before I forget, because my cognitive stuff still isn't quite back yet. So I wanted to make sure I got that out there. It means more to me than you'll ever know. So for the members that I do know, like Shawn said, and for the ones I don't, thank you. Really, I can't thank you enough. And to say that it made a difference is pretty obvious, because I'm sitting here talking to you today. So good job. And keep the prayers coming, because I have a long way to go. So real briefly, a little bit about what happened with me, just so to put things in perspective. I got sick probably I'm the assistant director for protective services at Einstein. So I was truly on the front lines of COVID, and our security department there obviously screened everybody prior to them coming in the hospital. So we took a lot of precautions, but regardless of everything we did, I still came down with it probably about the 26th or 27th of March. Since I knew exactly what to look for, within a couple of days, I kind of knew that my body was starting to go south. So on the 30th of March, I went and got tested, kind of knowing that I already had it. By the night of the 30th, I was in pretty bad shape. I had seen a pretty dramatic decline in about 8 hours. So I went into the hospital where I work at Einstein, and I was admitted immediately. So over the next couple of days, they tried a lot of different things, but gradually my breathing got to the point where I needed to get put on a ventilator. And I spent, I guess it was about 8 days on a ventilator. And during that period of time, of course, I'm not aware of this. I'm finding this out after the fact. But I died almost a couple times, at least 3 to 4 times from what I'm being told by the doctors. It was pretty traumatic to my body. Obviously, it was very traumatic to my wife and my kids, who had to endure that phone call every time the phone rang, trying to figure out what kind of phone call it was going to be. But through God's grace, I'm here. I was pulled off the ventilator, and from that point on, I mean, it was just a gradual recovery to try to get myself out of the hospital. So I spent all in total about 3 weeks' time. Ventilator, like I said, about 6 to 8 days. And then it was gradually getting up enough oxygen where I could get out of bed and walk around without like collapsing to the floor. And I'm home now recovering. So that's my story in brief.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Gerry. And how are you doing now? Is there any way we can still continue praying for you and your family?
Yeah, so excuse me. So the recovery process, I think, is going to take a long time. I want it to happen yesterday, and having patience is something that I'm starting to learn a little bit better than I had previous to this whole thing happening. Obviously a little bit different perspective on things. But yeah, it's a gradual recovery. As you can see, my breath is not quite there. That's going to take a while. The best way I like to describe it is a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. I'm trying to put pieces of my life back together, because I basically lost almost 2 to 3 weeks of time that I really don't know what happened. So I'm trying to get stories from people who actually know more than I do. So that's a little unusual. When more people know more about you than you know. But yeah, it's the prayers. Keep them coming because I'm not quite out of the woods. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with COVID. Um, Even after the fact, blood clots and stuff like that. I was at urgent care yesterday or 2 days ago, again, just to make sure that my chest is clear. So there's still a lot of concerns that I have, but I'm alive and I'm doing my thing, trying to get better.
And praise God for that.
Praise God.
You mentioned about perspective change. I'm just curious, is there anything that you've seen God specifically doing in this, or something that you feel like has changed in you, or the way that you've seen Him in this process?
Yeah. So one thing that I think the thing that I'm proudest of is the fact that before I went in, my family was everything to me. Shawn knows that, obviously, but my family was everything to me. And when I was in the hospital, realizing that I was going to have to get put on a ventilator. I mean, that's you're basically in my mind, you're putting your hands in God's hands. The medical staff is going to do what they can. I believe God works through them. I believe everybody's in it together, but you're putting your life in their hands and God's hands. And before you go on a ventilator, I mean, there's a lot of things that go through your head. And one of the biggest things was, do I have any regrets? Is there anything like I wish I would have spent more time with my family? And it was nice to be able to sit in bed and have the peace to know that I had put my priorities where they belonged. I always had, and it gave me probably more comfort than most people would have. So not having any regrets about the time that you didn't spend with your family, or the time that you spent on things rather than things that you now deem more important when the time's running short. That's a huge relief. And I believe that tied into, before I got put on the ventilator, I was at peace. I believe a lot of that has to do with my faith, and I think a lot of it has to do with all the prayers I was getting as well. And the third part of that was my wife telling me that I didn't have a choice, that I was definitely going to wake up. So I certainly wasn't going to disappoint her.
That's good. Well, Gerry, would you mind if I just prayed for you real quickly now before we finish?
Sure.
Father, I just thank you for Gerry. I thank you for his family. I thank you for bringing him through. Thank you for healing him. Thank you for the joy that we have as a church family to be able to be a part of this miracle, and so many people in this town, so many people at his hospital who are supporting him and praying for him through this process. Just thank you for bringing him through, for healing him, and for glorifying yourself. Lord, just continue to guide Gerry in his healing recovery process, and guide his family in the time that they have together. Lord, just thank you that we can be having this conversation here. Just receive all the honor and praise. In Jesus' name,
amen.
Gerry, thanks so much for your time today. And church family, let's just continue in our time of worship through singing here together. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to hear me out. And thank you to the congregation.
Yep. Take care, Gerry.
Take care. God bless.